Individual talent. Presentation by Indira, guest lecturer, Department of English, SF, CPA College, Bodinayakanur. Life of T.S. Eliot. T.S. Eliot was born on 26 September 1888 at St. Louis, Missouri, an industrial city in the center of the USA. His ancestors had migrated to America in 1668 from East Coker in Somersetshire, England, and had become flourishing merchants at Boston, New England. T.S. Eliot's grandfather had established a Unitarian church in St. Louis. He was interested in academic pursuits and founded the Washington University at St. Louis. The poet's father, Henry Eliot, had no academic interest. T.S. Eliot as a critic. T.S. Eliot was a versatile genius. He achieved a distinction not only as a poet and a playwright but also as a critic. Eliot's criticism is important because it sheds light on his own practice as a poet. Eliot stands in the long line of poet critics beginning with Ben Jonson and including such illustrious figures as Dryden, Dr. Johnson, Coleridge, and Matthew Arnold. Eliot has a comprehensive critical mind. He explores almost all the important aspects of literature and criticism. Tradition is lacking in English literature. T.S. Eliot begins by saying that the sense of tradition is lacking in English literature. We never speak of the tradition encompassing the major areas of English literature or of a tradition which implies the existence of more than one tradition, each with its own salient features. The word tradition is mostly used in a disparaging sense, as if criticism is a piece of archaeological reconstruction dealing with outdated matters as archaeological does. Importance of criticism. T.S. Eliot first discusses the greatness of the critical act. The French have produced an enormous body of critical writing, and therefore their critical turn of mind is said to outshine that of the English. But the English are proud that they are far more creative than the French. Eliot attaches a great deal of importance to criticism and calls it as inevitable as breathing. There is nothing wrong in a reader expressing his opinion of the book that he reads. Criticism is a healthy act, particularly because it cleanses the critic's mind of prejudices and enables him to view a work of art objectively. A critic learns to criticize his own mind through his work of criticism. Importance of tradition to individual talent. The error that a critic often commits is to view those parts of a poet's work in which he differs from his predecessors as his most individual work. Eliot opposes this view. He says that the best part of a poet's work is that which bears the imprint of the ancient writers. Not only the impressionable adolescent poet, but the mature poet also succumbs to the influence to the ancients. Tradition is what? Eliot says that the traditional poet does not simply irritate the surface of features of the predecessors. In order to be traditional, a poet must have a historical sense. He must absorb not only the literature of his own country but the poet of the whole Europe. He must not only the vastness of the past but also of its presence. That is, he must be aware of the timeless as well as temporal elements in the literature of the past. The historical sense enables a poet to know his place in the long chain of writers dating from the remote past. Relationship between the past and the present. Eliot says that the relationship between the past and the present is one of the mutual influence. It is usually thought that the present day poets are influenced by the poets of the past. This is merely one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is when a novel and of art is introduced. The existing order, instead of being destroyed outright, is merely altered slightly, that is, our attitude towards his past charges. The point is that a piece of art, however novel, does not overthrow the existing order but merely modifies it slightly. Poetry should be impersonal in nature. Eliot says that a critic should pay attention to the poetry rather than to the past. Eliot emphasized 2 points. All poetry forms are living whole, and that poetry is impersonal. A poem's greatness is due not to its being impersonal. The poet's mind is merely a medium which remains uninvolved when the poet is engaged in fusing varied experiences and transmuting them into a poem. Eliot discusses at length the appropriateness of the analogy of the catalyst. Eliot, staunch supporter of tradition. Eliot swears by tradition. He says that a good poet should have in his bones the whole European literature as well as the literature of his own country. This is largely true of Eliot's own practice. In his poems, we find him drawing upon ancient European writers as well as the ancient Sanskrit Vedic text. The Wasteland concludes with the Sanskrit slogans Datta, Dayavadam, and Damyata, and the four quarters contains many references to the Bhagavad Gita. All these allusions indicates Eliot's sensitive absorption of all ancient literatures. Poetry should be impersonal. Time and again, Eliot attacked the poet displaying his own personality in his poetry. Eliot regarded the poet as a medium in which various thoughts, emotions, feelings, images, phrases, and get infused and form a new artistic whole. In Keats' Ode to the Image of the Nightingale, flying away from the miserable mankind combines many floating feelings into a new art emotion. Eliot's mind acts exactly as a medium or, to use his own expression, as a catalyst, affecting a synthesis of others' thoughts and feelings without being affected in the process. Eliot never obtrudes his personality. Eliot's attack on romanticism. For a proper understanding, appreciation of Eliot's achievements as a critic, Eliot's critical pronouncements must be viewed against the background of critical movements current during his age. His reaction to some of the critical writings, he reacted violently against Romanticism in general. Romanticism remained powerful influence for a purely 2 centuries. Eliot's poetic dramas. Eliot wanted to revive poetic drama. According to him, poetic drama is not a drama with poetry superimposed on it. Poetry in drama should be integrated into the very texture of the drama and not be the detachable part. Eliot's Murder in the Cathedral is one such a poetic drama. The poetry in his later domestic plays, the family reunion and the cocktail party, is thin though appropriate. He carefully creates an objective correlative in each of these plays to convey certain thoughts and feelings. The murder of Thomas Becket in Murder in the Cathedral serves as a suitable vehicle for the poet to convey his views on the value of martyrdom. The need of altered traditions if there is need. On tradition included in the volume After Strange Gods, Eliot recognized the need to alter traditions as and when the need arises. He says that some traditions become defunct in course of time and that we had better drop them, trying to retain them as Eliot as foolish to gum fallen leaves back to the tree. Lifeless traditions, like lifeless trees, should be put to the axe. We should not stubbornly cling to a few dogmatic notions for what was a healthy belief at one time may become a pernicious prejudice at another. Limitations of T.S. Eliot as a critic. Some of the glaring limitations of T.S. Eliot must be pointed out. He is totally blind to the virtues of the romantic parts. He even calls Shelley a blackguard, concentrating on his failings in his private life. Recognizing his Platonic thinking and lyrical genius, Eliot does not practice some of his critical tenets in his own poetry. He says that a great poet is a fusion of thought and feeling and condemns Browning's poetry for being intellectual without being touched by emotion. Eliot commits the same mistake in the four quarters, which are nightly, cerebral, and give very little room for emotional outburst. Failure of poet critics. It is commonplace observation that many poet critics who have put forward revolutionary theories of art have failed to practice them in their own poems. Thus, Wordsworth, the apostle of rustic language, has eschewed peasants' colloquialisms and used a sublime language in the Immortality Ode and the Tintinnabie lines and in several parts of the prelude. Eliot is quite different from such a defaulters. He does not make an honest attempt at practicing his theories himself. Depersonalize emotions. Eliot repeats that the emotion of art is impersonal. To achieve this impersonality, the poet should not live in the present but also observe what elements the past are alive at present. Eliot attacks the Wordsworthian definitions of poetry as emotions recollected in tranquil. Eliot says that it is neither emotion nor is it recollected nor does the poetic composition take a place in a tranquil atmosphere. Eliot defines poetry as a concentration of the great number of experiences. Thank you.